Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, your 2024-2025 Los Angeles Lakers, number 15 with a bullet. We'll explain next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and it's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 24,000 subscribers are all patiently waiting, Andy, or all patiently waiting for the coaching search to end. It is not ending, at least as we sit down to record on Tuesday evening. It could be over on Wednesday morning by the time everybody gets up. But it isn't yet. And obviously, when the news breaks, we will be there to talk about it. It does certainly seem like JJ Redick is going to get that gig at some point. No news, at the very least, to counter that. So we'll talk a little bit of. We're actually not going to talk too much about the coaching thing, but we will talk a little bit about free agency and where the Lakers stand there, what kind of players they have, what level of players they have, all that good stuff. But let's start, Andy, with power rankings, because as you know, nothing is more important than a power ranking. Particularly a power ranking that comes out 2 days after the finals end. Would you agree? This is it's power ranking season officially again. I'm very excited.
Well, what it really is hot take season and engagement season and debate season, which, by the way, is 12 months a year, 365 days a year. We never close. That is what sports media and really media in general has turned into.
And particularly with the NBA, where like the big criticism of coverage is that it actually sort of de-emphasizes the games in favor of nonstop debate and ranking and hot takery.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to politics in media, stuff like that. And Brian and I would like to think that we are not part of the problem as far as the basketball discourse, but I'm sure in our own ways, we're certainly not solving it. But ESPN has its way too early. I mean,
I don't want to. I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't want to solve it too much.
It's true. Well, we don't. I don't want
to be the problem, but I mean, how much of the solution should we be either? I mean, I got a family to feed.
I want to be the solution as long as we still benefit from it. Like I want media to get better. I want sports media to get better. I want our contributions to directly help it get better as long as I'm still getting paid, preferably more. But anyway,
on the same pitch. All right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing this altruistically, but also mostly for myself. As far as the ESPN too early rankings go, number one, predictably, is Boston. They are now the defending champions. Sorry. 2, Denver. 3, Dallas. 4, the Timberwolves. 5, the Thunder. Then you start going down the list, and the Lakers come in at 15. The Pelicans are 13, Suns 14. Then behind the Lakers, 16, Miami, 17, Sacramento. And what I find interesting is 14, 15, 16 is all 3 teams that are at something of a crossroads just because of the collective ages of their teams and stars and a lot of assets that they've squeezed. Like, I mean, compared to the Suns and the Heat, the Lakers are like the Thunder in terms of all the stuff that they can use to trade around the league. But the assessment from Dave McMenamin, ESPN, friend of the show, the Lakers' future is very murky at the moment. The most obvious unknown is who will be the head coach next season after the Lakers fired Darvin Ham last month and Dan Hurley turned them down. Secondly, they're still awaiting LeBron James' contract decision on whether to opt in. And lastly, for a team that has had championship aspirations to start the season but lost in the first round of the playoffs, improving the roster is a must. Can that happen through the draft at number 17, or is a trade necessary? The answer might be both. They might need to try to use 17 and try to make a trade. How? Don't know. But practically speaking, they kind of need to do both.
It's, yes, I think most likely there's going to be a little bit of both of these things. I mean, they're going to have to figure out how to bring in some new players using whatever flexibility and very limited signing capabilities they have, with exceptions and minimum deals. And they're going to have to, smart trades, but smart being the operative word here. And I think, we make the joke about it's way too early for a power ranking. It's what it is it's way too early to be upset by like 14 versus 15, 15 versus 16, 8 versus 10, like all of it. It's too early to get worked up over that. It's not too early, though, to use a ranking like this to try and really gauge where you are relative to the teams that you're chasing. And, if you look at these numbers from ESPN, again, you don't got to agree with each one of these things. You can think that, the Minnesota, Oklahoma City is better than Minnesota, or should be right. It doesn't matter. But from the Lakers standpoint, you look at it, Boston number 1. Okay, well, sure. But then it goes Denver at 2, Dallas at 3, Minnesota at 4, Oklahoma City at 5. So before you even get to another Eastern Conference team, you've got 4 teams in the West. And then before you get to the Lakers, you've got the Clippers. Can you argue the Lakers really ought to be over the Clippers? Sure, because, records weren't that different, and the Clippers have a lot of the same injury considerations, if not even more profound injury considerations than the Lakers do. So there's that. The Pelicans are ahead of the Lakers. Again, you want to argue? Sure. But you can't. It's difficult to say the Lakers are clearly a better team than the New Orleans Pelicans, at least right now. Phoenix, same deal. Point being, what is that? 7 teams in the Western Conference that credible basketball minds put ahead of the Lakers. Let's say they're wrong about half of them. So 3.5 teams are ranked ahead of the Lakers that shouldn't be. 3 or 4 teams, whatever it is. You still got to jump over 4 teams. And have some making up to do.
Well, also too, and all the teams behind the Lakers in the West have to have been correctly slotted as well, because just the Lakers may move up, but so could, Sacramento is behind the Lakers. Sacramento could actually jump the Lakers. The West is super competitive, and the Lakers, the last 2 years in a row, granted very different circumstances and seasons, but they were 7 seeds both years. And the Lakers have felt very much, they were the year after they won the championship. Am I remembering correctly? They also entered that season, those playoffs as a 7 seed as well. I'm going to look so. I'm going to look it up quickly, but I think they
believe so. Yeah.
I know that other than
they barely beat Minnesota in that play-in game, and then that's where they ended up.
Right. So this has been roughly where things have shook out pretty consistently for the Lakers over the last several seasons. They have not been a bad team at all, and they've always, I think, credibly looked like a team that if they have all hands on deck, depending on the matchup, you're not going to want to play them in the playoffs. But I think we've also gotten past this idea that teams are going to be scared to play them as well. If for no other reason, then there's a lot of other scary teams in the West.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like the air of invincibility around somebody like LeBron at age, and this is not a criticism of LeBron James. He's 40. The air of invincibility around him is not there. And Anthony Davis is not seen as one of these guys that will take over a game, take over a series in ways that are going to kind of, just change. Like you said, it's not that you don't respect the Lakers. It's not that you think the Lakers are an easy series. It's that you're not scared of them. You don't look at that going, oh, Jesus, like we did all that work to be a 2 seed, and now we got to play the Lakers, or we won the conference, and now we got to play the Lakers. And look, if the Lakers had played Oklahoma City, most people I think would have picked, at least Lakers fans I think would have expected, based on the regular season results, for the Lakers to win that. I don't know if I would have picked the Lakers there, just because I think the playoffs are a little different, and I think Oklahoma City is really good and whatever. But the Lakers could have won that series. What makes this complicated, I want to talk about it when we get back, before we start getting into the players that kind of feed into this concept of how good the team is, how you evaluate where you are, relatively speaking. It's like, it's not like, the absolute number, but how much of the gap is there between the Lakers and Oklahoma City, the Lakers and Denver, Dallas? Memphis, by the way, is ranked below the Lakers in this power ranking, which I thought was kind of crazy. A healthy Memphis team was a top seed in the West 2 years ago. So just a bunch of questions I want to bring up on this next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, or all of the above, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and to bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
All right. So, it's not just like that you're ranked below a team, ranked above a team. It's also the gap that is between them. We do want to get into these questions in a second. I do want to remind people that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, I don't know if Dallas really should be, like, would I go into next season favoring Dallas to go further in the postseason than Oklahoma City? I'm not actually sure I would. I realize that's what happened this year. They went to the finals and whatever, but I'm not sure that's how it goes next year. Really like Oklahoma City as an ascending
So do
team. I think Denver could absolutely go straight back to the finals. It is very helpful to not play an extra 7 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is, and you get that rest, and it really does make a big difference. What you can't say, though, is you can't look at the Lakers and put them in that same tier. Not as saying that they can't go to the finals, so there's no configuration you can put together that could make them good enough to really be legitimate finals threats, but they're not there right now. So in your mind, I'm going to go ahead and put Denver, Minnesota, Dallas, and OKC in a top tier. You could argue that Memphis belongs in there, but maybe you just want to wait and see what it looks like when everybody comes back next year. Just looking at those four teams, how big of a gap do you think there is between the Lakers and those four teams, if that's your tier one?
I don't think the gap is huge, depending on which team and also depending on which matchup. I mean, clearly the gap between the Lakers and, say, Denver is monstrous. For the time being, we have to treat it as pretty damn big because they're like 1 in 2,000 over the last 3 or 4 seasons. So, and as well as AD actually played in this last matchup against Nikola Jokic. Like, I actually thought, if it was not a draw, it was shades better at best to Jokic. And there were some games where I actually thought AD was better than him. I think this was, if nothing else, a playoff series where AD was not the problem at all in that matchup against Jokic. But they've been a very difficult team for the Lakers to match up with. Who knows exactly what Denver is going to look like next season? There's been some talk that because of, aprons and luxury taxes and stuff like that, they might have to either let KCP walk or try to trade Michael Porter Jr. A Denver team without Michael Porter Jr. for the Lakers specifically is a very different team. Like that is a much not just in the playoffs, in the regular season, Michael Porter Jr. killed them. And all of a sudden, Rui, for example, defensively becomes a much different and I think better option if he does not have to specifically chase Michael Porter Jr. around screen after screen after screen. OKC and the Lakers during the regular season, the Lakers beat them pretty regularly, pretty decisively, and for pretty consistent reasons. So that matchup might favor the Lakers in the aggregate, even if OKC ends up winning more games in the regular season. But that gets to an important point. Part of what I think hurts the Lakers right now is because of their construction built around LeBron and AD, the concerns about trying to keep both of them at, AD in the latter half of his prime and LeBron several years past it, trying to keep them in the best place possible for the playoffs. There could be some regular season sacrificed. And it's become very clear that the Lakers can't just be dropped into the playoffs at any seed and expect to cruise through it. And I think one of the big mysteries and riddles and concerns for this Lakers team that I don't think gets talked about enough is how are they going to try to get themselves during the regular season in a place where maybe they can be a top 4 seed and try to actually start relatively advantageously in the bracket as opposed to trying to climb their way up season after season after season.
Yeah, it is a tricky needle for the Lakers to thread. I mean, I think ultimately what matters is, are you good enough at the play? Like, where do you stack up at your peak? Like, and like your point about like what happens if Denver loses KCP? What if they won't pay for all these guys and they have to move one of their max guys, like you say, Michael Porter Jr. goes somewhere else, whatever it might be. Part of what makes Denver so lethal is just that combination of guys. Makes it particularly lethal for the Lakers. But, it has been a real challenge for most teams across the league. If you start to change those, like Aaron Gordon was a really good player in Orlando. He became a true difference maker, a guy who put because of the fit in there. And so when you start to look, and this gets to, this question of player rankings, and The Athletic is putting out its offseason rankings of players, and like they drop guys into tiers, which I think is the right way to do it. Other places just straight rank players and whatever. But when you start to try to figure out how
rankings generate more debating and engagement, the stuff we talked about earlier. Nobody argues about tiers.
That's true. It's just smarter and more correct.
Shout out and respect to Seth Partnow, but you're doing this wrong, respectfully.
Right. And again, respectfully, like you said.
I mean, accurately. You're doing it very accurately. You're just doing it wrong.
Wrong.
You're putting a lot of real good thought and intelligence and research, into this. You're just doing it horribly, horribly wrong.
You both tried your hardest, and in a way you're both winners, but in a more accurate way, Barney is the winner.
Exactly.
So when the Lakers look to trades, when they look to whether it's, Darius Garland, whether it's Zach LaVine, whether it's Trae Young, whatever it is, and you just try to figure out who is the issue is a lot of, well, okay, what are you giving up? But also, too, how is the new guy going to fit in? Because none of this exists in a vacuum. And you have to look at fit. And guys, I think, when you get into what we call, the tier 5 players on The Athletic, and I know you have this broken down, like you can sit here and argue about, oh, that guy I think is like a tier 4 versus tier 5, or I think this guy's better than that guy on a ranking or whatever it might be. But when you're dealing with like 100 through, 80 through 100 or whatever it is in the league, a ranking like that, those guys are pretty similar generally. And really context is going to be the biggest difference between them.
Yeah. Context and fit and what you have on your team, what you're lacking, all that sort of stuff. So coming up next, we can get into some of the specifics where Lakers so far have landed in either Hoops Hype did a recent, post-season ending top 100 players. There's 4 Lakers accounted for. The Seth Partnow tiers, I'm pretty confident it's not complete yet, but it's going to be 4 Lakers and 4 Lakers only. 2 of them have already been named. We will get into all that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, WNBA, and the opportunity to bet it all on FanDuel. So right now, new customers, you get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. So look for an option just dead obvious. Like, this is a no-brainer. This is the simplest thing to hit. Put down $5 on it, win, boom. There's $200 that you can bet on spreads, money lines, player props, all sorts of different fun options. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every home run, every strikeout count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so we mentioned those player tiers and player rankings, and the contextually how this impacts the Lakers. What did you pull from some of these things? Whether it's the athletic tiers, I know you said Hoops Hype has a ranking. What stuck out to you?
First of all, we'll start with the tiers project that again Seth Partnow is doing at the Athletic. He does a lot of really good NBA coverage. Also, does the Nerder She Wrote podcast at the Athletic with Dave DeFore and friend of the show Mo DeKeel. He's laid out the tier 5 guys, which goes mostly 5A, and then 5 guys who just made the cut at 5B, and then the tier 4 guys, which are 4A, 4B, 4C. Guys in the 5 tier constitute top 88 through 125 players, and it's in no particular order. There's no number assigned, but D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves were named as part of the 5A, and some of the other 5A guys include KCP, Miles Bridges, Al Horford, Keegan Murray, Dylan Brooks, Kyle Kuzma, Nikola Vucevic, Terry Rozier, Russell Westbrook, Devin Vassell, Brandon Bajemski. So we're talking about some of the Bogdani, and both of them made it. So you're talking about some guys who are quality NBA rotation players, capable of every now and then having some really, really big nights for your team. But clearly they're not guys that can be built around. They're just very, very useful guys for good teams to have. The guys in 4C include Alex Caruso, Jalen Suggs, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, which I found interesting just because they were the 2 guys who moved over to Dallas, proved pretty important for them as far as getting all the way to the finals. Michael Porter Jr., Cade Cunningham, Tyler Hero, LaMelo Ball, CJ McCollum. But these 2 guys, which I thought was very, very interesting, Darius Garland and Zach LaVine, 2 players linked a lot to the Lakers as potential trade targets. And in the meantime, in Hoops Hype, their rankings, they had LeBron, they had AD at 9, LeBron at 10, and then they had D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves at 54 and 56 respectively. D'Lo actually started the season unranked, so in the Hoops Hype mind, he really, really did well this
Kudos
season.
to D'Lo for leaping up.
And look, I think top 60 is probably too high for both D'Lo and Reeves, but that's not really the point. What I found also interesting in this is how they were ahead of some of the guys that were in the Athletic tier 4. So like we were saying before, Brian, it's fairly fluid once you get past guys who are either all NBA locks, all-star locks, or guys who are always in the all-star conversation. It starts coming down to, what does your team need? How do certain guys fit together? How do their strengths complement each other? How do their weaknesses start becoming really redundant and damaging? Like offensively, Reeves and D'Lo together, very, very good, very complementary. Defensively, they can be a problem together. But also just the idea of when you start thinking about what you might need to give up for, say, Darius Garland and, picks, but also taking on his contract, are you actually getting that much better? Are you getting better enough to justify a move like that. And, I like Darius Garland, but if you're asking me, do I think you get that much better between him and, say, D'Angelo Russell? I think it's marginal. I don't think you get that much better.
Well, it's like you say, especially if you're giving up not just draft picks, because at least with draft picks, maybe not the one coming up this year, but the other ones or something, that is future stuff. That is future talent, whatever. But if you're trying to say, you know what, we need to win now, then your future stuff doesn't matter as much. And, okay, I'm not sure I agree with that. And it's also the opportunity cost. You can only trade a pick once. Once it's gone, it's gone. You can't turn around and trade it for something else later, and all of that stuff. But it's you have to categorize these things. It's not, is Darius Garland better than D'Angelo Russell? Okay, yeah, sure. We'll just say for the sake of argument, is he better than D'Angelo Russell and a player, D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura? Like, if you have to start putting more human people who are going to play for your team next year, that gets dicey real fast. And so you can get that talent upgrade in something that looks flashy, like we traded for, nobody ever says we traded for a tier 4 player, but we traded for a guy who's an upgrade over the guy that we have. But is the gap, like you say, big enough to actually make it so you're getting better? The last thing you want to do is trade from your limited supply of assets for something that doesn't actually make you better. This was the argument for the Lakers at the trade deadline, with what they had to do. And obviously they came down on the side of the things that are available to us don't materially make us better. I don't envy Rob Pelinka, again, other than the fact that he can never be fired, which is nice because it's a really good paying gig. Like, say what you want, Lakers don't pay as much as other teams, and they don't pay their support staff as much. And raw, numbers. I mean, Rob Pelinka, no need to pass a hat for Rob Pelinka. We don't need to do a GoFundMe. The guy's making a lot of money.
His commission off Kobe contracts alone was doing just fine.
Rob is rich. But the actual job at hand in terms of making the Lakers competitive now, championship level now, is not an easy one. There's no really easy path. The Lakers are still digging themselves out of the hole, or trying to climb out of the hole, I should say, that they dug with the Russell Westbrook deal. And this is where we can quit here. I actually want to talk. We'll get into maybe some Max Christie stuff and other things with free agency and who this might affect, with the Lakers, where they got the decisions they have to make tomorrow. But I'll just say this: like, this is where the framing of things matter. Like, are we going to pretend we're sticking with this? If you don't, like you say, Andy, you pointed out the last week or two, only championships matter ethos. If that's what you're sticking JJ Redick with, presumably, allegedly, this is not going to end well for him, because there isn't a coach that I think can, without a significant talent upgrade to, solve the Lakers' last mile problem, make them a team that you can look at the coach and say, that coach ought to reasonably be able to get them into a conference final or into a final. It's just an unfair position to put Redick in if you don't frame the job properly.
I mean, they have to, whether it's Redick, whether it's whoever, they have to be giving realistic expectations and a legitimate, support system behind this coach. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing this over and over and over.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers. Leave us questions, leave us comments. And we're going to use them in the show. And we'll see what happens with the coaching search over the course of today. I mean, let's, no time like the present to go ahead and hire a coach. Might as well get her done. And we'll see everyone tomorrow.